Untitled podcast is a part of the Kansas Google Education Group Network and also the Mace Kansas Network. You can find more information about episodes and guests at www.untitledpc.net. Welcome to Untitled Podcast. My name is Travis True.
And I'm Carol Nelson. Today's episode, we have Jerri Kemble, and she has been a public school educator for the 3 decades, serving as a teacher, school counselor, K-2 principal, assistant superintendent, and district superintendent. She has a successful track record of disrupting the status quo and working with stakeholders to create positive change. Jerri's received numerous awards for her seasoned leadership, including Kansas School Counselor of the Year, eSchool News Tech Savvy Superintendent, Kansas State University's Educational Administration Student of the Year, and most recently, Tech and Learning Magazine's Technology Leader of the Year. Whatever task is given to Jerri, she does it with a warm Midwestern smile, grace, and tireless work effort. Jerri's most potent asset is her ability to work with a diverse group of people, connecting them to other passionate and imaginative people. She is an exuberant presenter and has trained teachers and administrators throughout the United States. In 2017, she was invited to Shanghai to teach STEM and social emotional learning to teachers, students, and parents. In January 2020, she spent time in Kenya, Africa, working with schools on global collaboration and supporting the telemedicine program initiated to bring healthcare to rural African villages. She has been invited to the White House on 3 occasions, twice to share her knowledge with Vice President Joe Biden's top aides on virtual education and to attend President Obama's rollout of the Future Ready initiative for schools. Jerri pioneered the Kansas Online Learning program to provide virtual education opportunities for students in kindergarten through 12th grade and to adults wishing to receive a high school diploma. She's also served as an adjunct professor, providing graduate level courses in educational technology and leadership. Most recently, she's been involved with the Kansas School Redesign Project. As a part of the original redesign think tank, she helped generate ideas for the Kansas Commissioner of Education. She has worked with the Think Wrong Institute to redesign schools by utilizing the design thinking process. This work focuses on today's students and building the skills they will need for their future. She's now serving as the National Advisor and Evangelist for ClassLink. Welcome, Jerri.
Oh, thank you so much. I am so honored to be here. Thank you for inviting me. It's exciting.
Hey, I am so glad you're here today. So that was the most impressive biography I think we may ever read on this show. But let's just start off by kind of sharing how your journey through education with everybody and kind of how those things in your biography that you highlighted, how those things came about and what you're doing now.
Well, Travis, it's long because I've been around a long time. That's the reason. So, yeah, I have been in education over 30 years and, I have always had such a passion for education, and it has never really felt like a job because I love it. And it's what I do. It's what I've always wanted to do and to be a part of. And so I have done just about every job there is to do in education, from classroom teacher for 13 years, clear through to the superintendency. And so it's been fun. It's been a great journey, and I still continue to want to serve and do everything I can to help. And right now, I'm actually doing a podcast as well because I want to serve teachers just like you do, to share good messages out there, because we can't get to conferences, we can't get to people, and so we want to serve them as we can. But one of the things I am really proud of was in 2010, I was a superintendent literally in the middle of a wheat field in Kansas. And I had so many students that had so many aspirations, but I couldn't bring classes to them in the middle of the wheat field. And they wanted differentiation. They wanted different classes. And so we looked into different things and actually opened the Kansas Online Learning Program. When we opened that program, it brought 120 new class offerings to those students. And that was well, breaking boundaries for them. That was a whole new setting for them to be able to take classes that they would have never been able to take, and to go down pathways that they would have never had before. So I was very proud of that. And I still follow the Kansas Online Learning Program. I still love watching it grow. It has exceeded the brick and mortar building in population. They have more students than the brick and mortar building. They continue to grow and to thrive and to provide those services for students. So proud of the work that they continue to do. And I'm proud to say that kids continue to grow. One of my favorite stories out of that, though, was not of a traditional student. It was of a father that did not speak English. He wanted to get a diploma, but more than that, he wanted to learn to read because he had two little boys. And his desire was to learn how to read, and he actually did. I get goosebumps just thinking about it, because he was actually able to read them and sent us a little video of him reading to them a bedtime story. And it's those stories that that you are able to tell of how you actually changed people's lives. And so we even had a story of a student that said we saved his life, if you can imagine that, because he was able to get back into school and to have a focus on his future. So it's those stories of kids that we can make a difference in their lives. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. So, and that kind of brings out the counselor background in me that that I was also very proud of. So I did retire. My husband says, Jerri, wow, you really had good timing there. I retired January 2020, had no idea COVID was about to happen, but I did retire, and I'm now a recovering superintendent. It takes a while to recover from all of that, but it's fun to continue in my class link work. I get to continue to have conversations with district leaders around the country. It's been really good to visit with district leaders and hear what they're doing and what they're up against, and what they're, oh my gosh, what they lose sleep over every night as they plan and see what they're doing for kids. So all of those little pieces kind of come together to make that career, I guess, and kind of brought me to where I am today. So it's been a great journey.
I love that. And you mentioned the Kansas Online Learning Program and working with virtual education for over a decade. That is such an area right now that is so real to so many teachers with what we're having to deal with. What lessons would you say that you learned being involved with those?
Well, it's actually so interesting to me because, of course, everyone says strong relationships. We learned that. But you know what's interesting is that when I was with the Kansas Online Learning Program, I also had a brick and mortar building. And somehow, and I don't know how this happened, but I actually felt I had some relationships with my virtual families that were actually stronger than with the brick and mortar families. And I don't know why that happened. And we would have discussions with the teachers, and they felt the same way sometimes. So when people say it's so hard to have these relationships, it is, it really is. But I also think that we had to work so hard to have them. And we also had to come on their turf. And what I mean by that was we would do things then. So this was 10 years ago, right? We would go onto their Facebook, which we would never go onto the Facebook 10 years ago of our brick and mortar parents, but we would go onto Facebook and connect with them there. We would text them. We wouldn't have done that 10 years ago with our families in the brick and mortar. So we were kind of stepping out of bounds then to meet them where they were. And we would talk to them all hours and whatever it took to meet them where they were. And the other thing was we accepted our virtual students where they were because we knew that we had kids in our school that were virtual and we knew their story, but we had other students and we knew that they were in very different situations. We had some that were athletes training for the Olympics. We had some that were very, very sick. We had some that had parents that were dying and wanted to spend their parents' last days with them. So we were very understanding of what was happening. And so I think because we knew all of these stories, again, it's always about these stories, right? That we really stepped out to create those strong relationships. Not that we didn't want to do that for kids in the brick and mortar building, but I guess we knew we had to really try hard. And so we did. And so those relationships were huge. The other piece was we found out after the first year that we had to create this extensive onboarding platform. And that is a lesson that I think we could learn in remote. And that is that you have to really teach some of these self-regulation skills. And you have to spend a lot of time up front talking about how are we going to hand in papers? What does that look like? Where will the lessons be? How will you get a hold of me? How will we visit in class? How will you work with others in class? How will we make this work? You have to spend a whole lot of time on that. And teachers think sometimes, oh, we've got to get into the lessons. Well, if you spend the time up front, it really makes a difference. So you have to go slow to go fast. That's another lesson that we learned. And then the other thing was, it is really like feeding a whole village of people. And you have to use a lot of that universal design as you plan. So if you were going to feed the whole village, I can't feed everyone this one casserole, because I know everybody can't eat that. I've got people that are lactose intolerant. I have people that need to be G-free. I have vegetarians. And so I can't send this one pot, this one meal to feed everyone. I can't use this one lesson plan to teach everyone. So I have to think, what is it that they need to know, and send it in bite-sized chunks, and try to think about the different kinds of learners that I have, and just small chunks. And so we would do it that way. I have a friend that he's an amazing virtual educator. His name's Keith Wilson, and he was the principal in Lawrence for years. And he would tell his teachers to watch TED Talks and to be very succinct and to just push out very quickly and get it succinct down to a few minutes. You don't have to talk for an hour, just make it small. And so those would be some lessons that I would teach. But the one thing I learned about virtual education that I think is the most important, that I wish brick and mortar would get their head around soon. And this one's kind of hard. Yeah, you almost have to hear it a couple of times. And that is, in brick and mortar, time is the constant thing. We're always measuring everything on time. How long did you have your little bottom in the seat? That's what we measure, right? And learning is the variable. But in virtual, learning became the constant and time was the variable. And that's really what it should all be about. It doesn't matter how long you're in the seat. It's what you learn. And in education, we really need to get our head around that. Seat time is not where it's at. Login time is not where it's at. The learning is what matters. And so we need to talk to some state level people, some federal level people. It's the learning that counts. I think we're maybe measuring the wrong end of kids. The seat time, that's not what we need to measure. We need to measure if they're learning, not how long they're in the seat or how long they logged in. So those are some takeaways from virtual that I think we can all learn from. So
what platform were you using? Because I think back to, I got my master's from Emporia in 2007, and they were using Blackboard, which I know Blackboard is fairly expensive. So what did you purchase the platform? Did you make your own? What platform were you using?
When we started the virtual school?
Yeah, you started.
Yes. So
Yeah.
we bought a curriculum from, it was called Lincoln Interactive. And so they had a curriculum for us that was created, and the LMS was embedded in it. And so we used what they had. And so it was like Blackboard. I'm not really sure what exactly they were using. I know people have tried to create their own, and here's the problem with that. They had like paid actors and actresses that would perform the reading, and the cadence was perfect. And voice and everything was just perfect, which makes a difference when you're teaching kids, and so everything was so professionally done. And the other piece was, remember, I'm out in the wheat field with limited resources. I could not write a curriculum. I didn't have the staff to do it. So I needed to purchase something. Now, having said that, we did customize it, and teachers would tweak it to meet the needs, because this was a curriculum from Pennsylvania. So we would have to add in things from Kansas that needed to be added, but our staff was terrific about adding into that and making it a Kansas curriculum. So we would add in what we needed to make sure we had everything we needed for Kansas. But they were terrific about having everything professionally done for us. So I don't really know what platform, other than they had a platform that we purchased.
Because at that time there wasn't very many platforms available. Blackboard,
No.
Moodle maybe, and
Yeah.
then a couple of others maybe that I don't remember. Because that is very interesting. Get that started and see that basically come worldwide now in a matter of
10 years.
10 years. Yeah, 10 years.
Yeah.
So
I want to add on to that at that time, I also was fortunate enough to go to the White House and visit with Joe Biden's team on his educational team about virtual learning. So the first year I went, and they said, "What? You have 500 square miles in a school district and only like 200 kids?" That they could not even wrap their brain around it, right? They're all city people. And then I would tell them stories, and they were lady, we just can't even believe what you're telling us. You are, like from another world or something. They just couldn't believe it. But I was so impressed because this is 10 years ago and they were really thinking forward. I was also very honored to talk to them about what virtual education could do for rural America, because it really opened doors for us. It allowed us to go to museums, to see things that normally we were not privy to. So the next year, they invited some people back. And it was so funny because the group that I went with, they said this year they're cutting it way down, but here's the list of people. And they said, and then they couldn't remember her name, but they said they want that lady in the wheat field to come back. I'm like, okay, I think that's me. So I was able to go back again, and they were like, okay, you got to tell us what's happening in the wheat field this year. So it was really exciting. So I'm excited to think that soon to be President Biden will be back with an education agenda. I think that will be very forward thinking, because he was 10 years ago, and I suspect it will continue to move in a forward direction like that. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, and I hope our political leaders can get something figured out
Yes.
for our lack of connectivity and
Oh my goodness.
because we need everybody needs that connectivity. It's not just a rural school issue. I mean, here in Topeka, we have families that struggle with remote because they can't, they're trying to run Zooms off of a phone hotspot because they're not connected to regular internet. And so that big inequality of everybody not having internet access is really, really hurting. And so I hope our political leaders we can get something figured out and get something moving forward on that, because that's the game changer for virtual and remote, is getting everybody online.
Absolutely. And another lesson we learned from virtual that I think our school leaders need to learn as well is, I know some virtual leaders that say, well, there's a family of 4, we're going to send out one computer. No, we're not going to send out one computer. That is their classroom. Each student needs a computer. We don't say, oh, there's 4 kids coming to school, we're going to give them one desk. No, they all need one. So I don't understand that thinking at all. And also,
Right.
the Wi-Fi, for a while, the thinking was, well, they can just go to McDonald's. No, that's not going to work either. So, leadership really needs to, broaden the aperture and what they're thinking about it. But I think that's a positive of COVID. It really put a microscope on some of the things that need to be done.
Well, I know in Shawnee County, they started the conversation back up about the countywide Wi-Fi.
Yes.
They've had years ago, and then it dropped. They have kind of off and on conversations, but I think, like you said, COVID has brought a lot of this to the forefront, and so people are having those conversations again.
Yes, I will say, and I'm a little hesitant to say it, but a few years ago, I went to our county commission to talk about working together about some Wi-Fi. And one of the comments that was made to me by one of the commissioners was, well, you bought those computers, you need to figure out how to get them connected. And I guess I shouldn't be embarrassed because they said that, but I'm embarrassed for them that was the mentality. Because I think now we see the reasoning behind it. Everyone needs to be connected, especially the people that the people that need it the most are the ones that don't have the resources for it, because that's where all of the services are online. That's how you find out about those services and those resources. And we need to have the people, everyone connected so that they can find those services
Right.
and resources. So yes, agree with you.
All right, so let's switch gears a little bit and share about your work in Africa and how that came about and what's going on down there.
All right. So actually, my work in Africa started, oh my goodness, about 2012. I have a friend, Paula Henderson, that was working on an African project, and I got excited about it because she was sending things to students in Africa to help support them, because they don't, I mean, we were working with a village there that they don't have like balls to play with, and they didn't have a lot of school books, a lot of different things. And so I asked my students if they would like to help with this, and they would. So we just started working with them then. And then when I applied for the assistant superintendent position in Lawrence, I had to explain the SAMR model, and I was talking about redefinition. So in my interview, I took this big chance, and I thought, I'm just going to show what redefinition could look like. And I asked the guy that I was working with, John, if he would connect us to that African village that we'd been working with during the interview. So lo and behold, he ran an extension cord down the hill, and we logged in with those kids and talked to them a little bit during the interview. So I was like taking a big chance. I thought, oh, well, I'll just see what happens. And so we visited with them a little bit. And I've always stayed connected with John. He's from Africa. And so when I retired in January, he said, Jerri, for your retirement, why don't you, I'm taking another educator, why don't you join me and come to Africa, to the village, and work with the women in the village and work with some of the children. And I thought, this is a perfect time. And so I was starting with ClassLink, but I had about a month before I started. So went to Africa, and we worked with the women in the village. We taught them how to make some earrings, just like this, the clay earrings. And then we went to the schools and we worked with the children in the village as well. I think the most important thing we did was we saw the telehealth project that's going on, which at the time we didn't hear about telehealth in America at all. Now it's a big deal. But, you know, in the village, it is so, the roads are so bad, and it's so hard for them to get around. But they do not have health services. And so they were bringing a computer in, and people could come and talk to the computer just like we are right now and tell the doctor your symptoms. And there was a nurse there that could take your vitals, and then they could see what was going on. And so John was rolling out the telehealth and actually working with Lee's Summit with students that were helping students in this village talk about how we can roll this out. So it was this big education initiative. And I had been to Lee's Summit to talk to the kids there and work with the kids in Africa as well. And I thought, well, this is really nice. But then I saw what was happening in the village. The Archbishop was there, the governor was there, all the dignitaries were there. All of these people show up, choirs of people show up. And we enter the village, and then we watched the telehealth roll out, and they said, here's the waiting room. I thought, okay. We opened the door, and it's an outside waiting room. And there were literally hundreds of people out there. And some of them had walked for 3 hours. Now, you have to put this in perspective. They have no technology. They don't even know what this is, but they're willing to take a chance to have someone help them for their health. That's amazing to me. And people came up to us and hugged us and thanked us and blessed us for bringing them this telehealth, which I didn't bring them anything. I was just lucky to be there while this was happening. And so as I came back, I work with this amazing group of people that are called Third Activists. And we are people that are over 50, but we are in our third act, and we want to do something for the world. We don't want to relax and wait for the next coupon at the Golden Corral. We just want to make a difference. So these third activists are really cool people that are well connected. So I brought some of these ideas to them, and actually a couple of them are designers. And so they are actually helping to design a vehicle to help bring some of this telehealth to the village. So we're continuing to work on this telehealth, and it just made me even more committed to see what more we can do. But also along those lines, when COVID hit, I found out, I stay in touch with the villagers, and we Zoom once in a while and Zoom with the Archbishop as well. We found out that if you do not have a mask on in Kenya, you will be fined and thrown in jail. Now, if I have a family of 4, to buy a mask would be a month's salary. So it's incredible. And then if I don't have a month's salary to give to buy the masks, I go to jail. So they sent us pictures, and people are putting women's underwear over their face to keep from having to go to jail. And so it's just breaking our hearts. And my daughter went with us too, to Kenya. And so we started, my friend Paula again, which is a go-getter, we started asking people to help us to create masks. And we sent close to 3,000 masks to Africa to help them so that they would not have to go to jail or pay this fine. It was so cool. We Zoomed with them the day they handed them out, and they had gone through the village and they decided who needed a mask the most and handed it out to the people that were sick or who financially just could not have it. And we also had some people donate money for sewing machines so that we can help empower them to make their own masks. So really cool stuff. And the piece that I struggle with is I don't want to be stuck in that white saviorism piece. I don't want to be the person that's the white savior that comes in and says, let me save the day for you. It's not what it's about. It's what do you need, and how can we empower you? And so we visit with them about what it is they need. And the number one thing that they need right now is the healthcare. And so although I'm an educator and I want to do the education piece, I had to put that aside because the healthcare is what they need. And so that's really what we've been working on. And that has been so exciting and moving forward with that. But the masks were so much fun that now my daughter and I are having a good time just we started making masks for teachers because they were wanting them at the school because they have to wear one every day. And so we started making what we call masks with meaning. And we have just like fun masks that have a fun meaning, a lot of pop culture. Travis has one that is the old leg lamp from, what's the movie, Travis?
Christmas Story, the best Christmas movie ever.
Yes. We sell a lot of the Ruth Bader Ginsburg mask and Schitt's Creek. So we have all these fun masks, and I really don't think we're making any money on them because the fabric's expensive, but it makes us feel good to be able to kind of help protect people and to make them smile at the same time. So we've been cranking out a lot of masks and getting them out there for people just to kind of protect them and make them smile during this tough time. So that's been fun.
And people can find that on Facebook, right?
Yes. Yes. And it's called Masks with Meaning. Yeah.
And we'll have a link. We'll have a link in the show notes on the episode page to your page. Yeah, the masks are really cool. They're really creative. My wife tried mine on, and she immediately ordered another one for her because she likes the way that they're made. That they they stick off of your mouth.
Yeah.
Because she's
and they have
always tugging. And they have a nose piece, and then but it sticks out away from her mouth, so it's not right on top of her mouth because she doesn't like that when she's talking, and that's what sold her when she put mine on. So
it's so funny because people get their mask and then they say, "Hey, we got our mask today. I need to order 4 more." We're like, "Oh my gosh!" So it's fun. But it's also been a great connection with a lot of people I haven't talked to in a while because they order a mask and then I get to visit with them a little bit. So it's been fun. So, yeah, so that's our masks and kind of our Africa connection.
Do you have any plans? I know not immediate plans, but are there any future plans of going back to Africa, or any plans with third activists of doing another project someplace?
Yes. So actually, before COVID really started to hit hard, I had been talking to John and working with John about taking a group of third activists to Africa and doing some things there. I think we have a group that's ready to go and to do some things, and I think they'll really be ready once the vaccine's out there and we can go again. So yes, that is on the agenda. We really want to go back. We're anxious to do that. And my own personal bucket list is for my whole family to go. I want them to see Africa. I have been to a lot of countries. Africa is life-changing. It really changes your whole perspective on life and the world. I think just to share one short story, we were headed to town one morning. It was about 5:30 in the morning, and we're driving down the road, and there's these 3 little boys in their little uniform walking down the road, and they have these big sticks. And I said, "John, what are these little boys doing walking down the road with the big sticks?" And he said, "Oh, they're headed to school." And he said, "Do you know why they have those sticks?" And I said, "Oh, to hit off animals or something?" And he said, "Oh, no." And I said, "What are the sticks for?" And he said, "Well, you all have to bring a stick for the fire for the lunch at school so that you can stoke the fire when you get to school." And I thought, wow. They're all bringing something to add to the community, to the fire. And I just think the sense of community, and they're all so happy. And according to our standards, they have so little. But if you stop and look at what they have so much. They are so happy. They are happy to kick a can for the day. They make balls out of whatever they can find and string. And they are such happy children. They're playing all the time. They're singing. They have laughter. When I went, I was like, I've got to get technology in their hands. And then I think, why? They are so darn happy. They seem well adjusted. Why? Why would I do that? So, but on the other hand, they want it. They want to be connected. And so I understand that too. And I do want to get them connected, but it's just life changing how polite and kind and wonderful and respected they all are. And so I want my whole family to experience that. So it's on my bucket list. So
I love that. Was your time in Africa before your Kansas redesign work or
after,
after?
yes, yeah.
I'm curious how it might have affected that project. Do you think you would have taken some things from your time in Africa to bring into the redesign?
Yeah, I think so, especially some of the way that they are so connected with nature and connected with the world around them. I think schools need to get a little more connected with nature and the world around us. I think we're very disconnected in schools from nature, and I think as we look at our planet, and we need to look at saving our planet and connecting more with nature. And I think that would have been one thing I would have brought into that if I could have. Yeah, that's a great question.
So speaking of redesign, you were on the initial team to get that kind of planned and started, right? How
Yes.
did that how did that get started? What was the inspiration behind that? And then um, just share with us kind of that whole process, because we had Tim Vesco on an episode, and Josh Stock, who are involved in their
Mhm.
schools redesign. So just kind of share with everyone how the whole redesign project got started
So the redesign at the state level or in our district?
at the state level.
At the state level. So Dr. Watson, of course, got things going. And so he brought together kind of a think tank of people that were looking at different aspects that we could look at for redesign. And so we would have great conversations about some ways that we could look at things differently. So one of the areas that I was looking at was the counseling and kind of the social emotional, and how we could use counselors differently. I believe pre-COVID, a lot of schools administrators were using them as assistant principals. Sometimes counselors were used in that role. I think now we see that COVID has really shined a light on that as well, that counselors should not be used. They have a specific skill set that really needs to be utilized to work with students. They know how to work with students in that way, and that should be used. So that was the area that I worked on. And it was so nice to be able to share ideas about that, and how we felt that should be moving forward. He also had a group that worked on like preschool, and what we should be looking at for preschool and how we can move that forward. And all of that was connected with KISA, which I loved the KISA plan, and I did a lot of work with that in our district as well. I felt like, I don't know why a district would need additional strategic planning if you're working on the KISA plan, because I felt like that is very comprehensive. There is so much there that it just covers almost everything from preschool to social emotional to character development. So as we look at COVID, and if you think about in March, what were people scrambling about? They weren't worried about, are they going to know the parts of speech? Are they going to get those math problems done? No, we didn't care. We wanted to make sure kids were fed and taken care of. So I think we're seeing what the priorities really are. And I feel like Dr. Watson's vision really was in that direction, and we're kind of seeing, once the microscope was put on all of that, that is really where people want to go and to move. But I will say, in Lawrence, we did not come on to redesign immediately. We weren't one of the first adopters. We were trying to get, you had to have your 80%, and it took us a while to get there. So, but once we did get there, we were kind of watching the state. I think we were, I don't know, maybe round 3 of the redesign project. But it seemed like the schools were starting to begin to replicate the same thing. They were doing what round 1 and round 2 did. And so I asked our team if we could hire a design thinker to lead us through this. And so we're fortunate to sit where the University of Kansas is. And John Bielenberg is here, and he is a design thinker. And I'm going to send you a link to his YouTube so you can think, or can see some of the thinking that he has. So I really wanted us to really start to think differently. And he has a book and a lot of YouTubes, and he does workshops all the time called Think Wrong. And one of the things that he says is that we have, if you will, the status quo that's like this. And when you want to make a change, your changes have to be so different. The trajectory has to be about this high, because status quo is like gravity. It will pull you down. And so you have to have ideas that are just kind of radical, because they will be pulled down by status quo. And so he was working with us to create these radical ideas. And as we were going through them, I think it was really interesting. A couple of things. Teachers at first were very reluctant to go outside the box. And as I look at that, I think that the system has really made them stay inside the box for so long. But the other comments that they were making, and I think we really need to take a look at this, was, I don't want to put a lot of time into this because administration will squelch it. We need to look at that. If that's what they're thinking, and that's legitimate that they think that way, because that's happened for so long. We need to make some changes in the culture and make it so that we can make these changes and they don't feel like their ideas are squashed. Now, the little elementary kids, they had no problem thinking outside the box. They had all kinds of ideas. They had swimming pools in the middle of the room. They had a lot of nature things. They wanted to be outside. They wanted to connect with nature. They had a lot of great ideas. Now, our high school, that's where my eyes were really opened. We worked with our high school students, and their top 3 things that they felt we should work on. The first one was they wanted to make sure that students were fed. I was shocked. Food insecurity was their number 1 concern. And they wanted to make sure that food was available throughout the day so that people were not hungry. I was just really shocked with that. The second one was they wanted to make sure that everyone had more. Now, this is pre-COVID, right? Right before COVID. They wanted to make sure that there was more support for kids with more counselors and social workers. And then the third thing that they said that they would like to see is to cut the busy work. Teachers, just get down to what it is we really need, because we would like more time to pursue our passions, and we really don't have time for busy work. So if you could just cut that out. And then I was talking to one girl, and she said, I don't tell people this, but I live in my car, and I work at McDonald's, and I don't have internet, and I really don't have time for busy work. I got to find the internet. I have to chase it. So if you could just give me exactly what I need to get done, I need to just get that done and get on with it. So I guess I was shocked at how stressed our kids are. So that was really interesting.
Isn't it amazing how we as leaders plan for schools and educational programs, but don't talk to kids and find out what they need?
Absolutely. Yeah, it was eye-opening. Definitely eye-opening. So you're exactly right. We need to be talking to the kids and finding out what they need. And, who would know that they're that hungry and worried about their friends being that hungry? So.
Yeah,
All right, Jerri. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say those needs are so prevalent now. So putting that groundwork in place at the high school, so beneficial to right now.
Absolutely. Yes. So, and then COVID has just shed more light on all of that even. So, yeah.
So we're going to finish up our time with one more question, and we ask this question to all of our guests, and it's a question that I always ask to people that I talk to because it's always interesting to hear your perspective on this. So as we've been in COVID since last spring, what's something, maybe not you, but maybe something that you see that will continue after we're back to normal and kind of back in school, in school in person, maybe full time. So from where you're sitting as a retired teacher, administrator, now talking with people from around the world, what's something that you think will get carried forward or continued from our time in this COVID crisis?
Yeah. So one of the things that I hear a lot about that people really have liked is not having to come to school for parent-teacher conferences. They like the idea of Zooming, and I hear it from a lot of people. They're like, why do we have to come there? Why do we have to go to the school? This was so much more convenient just to have a Zoom meeting and have the parent-teacher conference that way. So, and I've heard that from teachers. I've heard that from parents. A lot of people say, let's just keep this one this way. There's no reason that we have to come to the school. Some people have said, I had a break at work, and for that 15 minutes I could do that. I wouldn't be able to come otherwise. So I think we should take advantage of that one. So that's what I would say moving forward.
The convenience of Zoom and video conferencing is great, but it's also got a negative side to it when you're it seems to be in Zoom meetings all the time because it's convenient to get everybody on a Zoom too.
Yes. I know. When you have 7 hours of it a day, by the end of the day, you're just pretty worn out with it. But yeah. I know. But you know what? 7 hours in person wears me out too. So.
Those were not fun times. Those 12-hour conference days. Not that talking with parents is great, but just being there for that long of a time,
right?
Is just not fun. So.
We have loved your stories and hearing so much more about you and your work. Tell us, just before we go, you have a podcast. You're going to be on ours, but you have your own. Tell us a little bit more about that before we go.
You bet. So our podcast is called Linked Up, Breaking Boundaries in Education. And I'm fortunate to work with Jamie Saponaro, who is my co-hostess, and I love having two. Isn't that great? And so both of us are former educators, and she is very talented in the world of technology and training teachers in technology. And both of us were wanting to give to teachers and connect them, hence Linked Up, linking them. And we both felt like we have known so many amazing people in our career. And if we could just link them up to teachers and educators today, and at their convenience, they can hear what other people are doing and hear all of these great stories and what's happening and inspire educators everywhere. So we have everything from esports to, tomorrow we're doing laughter yoga and, things you hadn't thought about, to, the psychology of the pandemic, just all kinds of things. It's just all over the place, to social justice. So we try to be very eclectic in what we're doing, but just linking educators. And I think it's very comparable to what you're doing, linking educators to the good stories that are out there, because there's so much good happening. So it's fun to be on this side of the podcast too. So thank you.
Well, thanks for joining us. Like I said, it's always a pleasure talking to you. When everything gets settled down and we need to meet up and get some ramen and
Yes.
sit down and talk over a bowl of warm ramen from Ramen Bowls in Lawrence. So, all right. Well, Jerri, thank you very much. And I want to thank everybody for listening to this episode of Untitled Podcast.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.